A Problem of Four by Imagination Junkyard. Summary. When the four sword gets a crack in it, four starts to crack too. The colors find themselves, for the first time in their life, alone. AKA, the colors start getting individual control over four with no memory of what the other colors do when they're in control. Chaos ensues and everyone in the chain is seriously worried that four has lost his mind. Additional tags include Linked Universe, Four-centric, Four has a bad time, and a confusing time, and everyone else is having a confusing time as well. Humor. Chapter 1. Fisher. The battle had stretched on for what felt like an hour, though it surely hadn't been that long. Potions were being handed out for bigger wounds, while bandages were being brought from person to person for smaller injuries. "Did you hit your head?" Four lifted his head from his hands to find Sky standing over him, expression drawn into one of concern, bandages in hand. Pulling his fingers away from his temples, he shook his head. "Just a bit of a headache. It'll pass." He'd been lucky to get out of the fight with nothing more than a few bruises, but a migraine had started up right near the end. If they hadn't been finishing off the last two monsters, the smith wasn't so sure he'd have ended up so unharmed. It was always harder to focus when it felt like someone had secured his head in a vice, ready to pound a forging punch right through his noggin. Fortunately, it hadn't actually reached the "someone is hammering a punch through my skull" level of pain yet. He hoped it wouldn't get that bad. The knight's gaze swept over him, checking for injuries before giving him a nod and heading over to check on Legend, who was sprawled on the ground face down, mumbling, "I swear I'm gonna rip out those moblins' rings next time. Stupid, gaudy pieces of... ugliest moblins I've ever seen." With a mixture of amusement and apology, Sky asked, "You good?" "Aside from my mind being scarred, yes." The vet lifted his head. "Did you say those were yours, Sky?" "Unfortunately." "I don't suppose you've got some sort of method of wiping that imagery from your brain?" "Nope." Legend flopped back down with a groan. A small smile managed to turn the corners of Four's lips. They were pretty ugly, he agreed to himself. Mindlessly, he mumbled, "Not as bad as Darazol, though." "You sure?" "I don't know. Maybe." It was only the flicker of flame from the corner of his vision that had him blinking from his zoned-out state, gaze swinging to watch Wild getting out his ingredients. Wow, cooking even after all that? That's nice of him. Noticing Four's attention, Wild asked, "Do you want a veggie skewer, meat skewer, or a combo of both?" "Veggie," Four replied, only for another answer to immediately follow out, "Meat." Wild blinked. Four's eyes widened. "Both," he blurted. I'll have both." "All right." Giving one last odd look, Wild went to ask the others for their orders. Four's thoughts were usually pretty well his own. The colors would bleed in a little, dyeing his thoughts with differing opinions, but it was subtle unless he focused on it. It usually only became distractingly noticeable if some sort of inner turmoil, some big stressful event, began tugging at his inner seams. The worse things got, the brighter the saturation became until he was more four than one, and sometimes until he was literally four. His head could only take so much after all. But this was a skewer. Dinner options. Why had things gotten so noisy? And more importantly, why had their differing opinions spilled out of his mouth? The smithy liked to think himself pretty good at keeping the colors contained to the insides of his brain while he was visibly in one piece. Only when he got really worked up or super out of it did his focus on speaking as a whole start to slip. He turned away from Wild, closing his eyes and taking a breath as he turned his attention inward. What was that? The question was posed by two colors at once. A flat, bewildered tone from one, and a more tentatively intrigued yet still confused tone came from another. "I didn't mean to." Worried, anxious words flickered in his mind. "I swear I was just thinking it, that's all. I just thought veggie sounded better tonight, but I never meant to say it out loud." A scoff paired with a waterfall of irritation. "Well, I meant to. I wasn't going to let your big mouth get us nothing but mushrooms for dinner." Technically, mushrooms aren't a vegetable. They're not plants, they're fungi. But if we eat them like veggies, aren't they veggies? The tone became less worried and more curious. Can we focus, guys? This isn't like us. Green's right. It's an odd thing to tug us apart so noticeably. A poke in the side had Ford jumping, eyes snapping open as his head whipped to see Wild standing there, brows raised at his reaction. "You're skewer," Wild said simply, holding out the food. If he had poked him in the side to get his attention, that must have meant Four hadn't heard him calling his name. Not good. Four opened his mouth as he reached for his dinner, and two different responses tried to tumble out all at the same time, resulting in something that sounded like, "Finally." A pause. "Thanks," Four corrected, face heating. Wild raised his brows, but backed off without any questions. "Stop saying stuff, Red," came crashing in, making his headache all the worse. A heated reply flaring up in turn. "You stop saying stuff too, Blue. You're messing us up." "None of us should be saying anything at all, though," came a calmer voice. "We should be more together than this, flowing in one direction, one voice, not splitting apart." "Do you think something is wrong with the sword?" "That's impossible. Oh, I hope not. No way." "We should probably check, though." Four bit down on his skewer to hold it in his mouth as they stretched to grab his sword from where it rested in the grass. The smith had planned to make sure his weapon was in good condition before going to bed, but it wouldn't hurt to do so now. "I'd actually like to eat first." "Shut up, Blue." "You shut up, Green." "Guys, stop." A blessed moment of silence. The seams in his brain felt deep as he carefully picked up the sword. Very carefully, because letting the sword split them felt all too tempting right now. "Not here. No, definitely not. Bad idea. Head hurts, though. Yeah. They didn't feel anything strange just by holding the sword. Soft and warm, a voice offered, "Maybe we're just tired?" "I'm not tired," came a response, much like dumping water on a fire. "No, we're definitely tired," settled between them in an effort to stop the argument. "We're a part of each other, there's no hiding it, we're definitely tired." "Check the blade, too," reminded the final voice. The blade slid from its sheath, and the light of the fire caught on a crack. Four voices chimed together in a word that rang through his head and slipped out of his mouth all the same, though the verbal expression of it was muffled entirely by the skewer in his mouth. "What?" Chaos erupted. A blazing panic. "How's it broken? It can't be broken!" Anger slammed against his temples. "You gotta be kidding me. Did Wild touch it? I'm gonna break his kneecaps if he broke our sword." A smooth but short reply. "He didn't touch it. This isn't his fault." The cool response hardened a fraction. "This shouldn't be possible." "Well, it must be because it happened. We're all looking at it." Like a strong, refreshing breeze came a sense of direction. "Wait, guys, it's okay. We can fix it. We know how to fix weapons. That's our job." "Green's right," shouted the most shrill, frantic voice of them all. "Everyone calm down." "I'm quite calm, actually, though I'd like to point out that we can't do it on our own. We'll need some tools from the others to get the heat we need." "Oh, no, we can't make them help us right now. Everyone's so tired." Four scanned the clearing, the beginnings of the setting sun starting to dye the worn-out gazes of his friends as they ate their dinners. The smith sheathed their weapon and set it down, pulling the skewer out of his mouth, brow furrowing. "You're right," he muttered. We can wait until tomorrow morning, then." He shook his head a little. "That's a long time to wait, though. Not if we go to bed early." "Did you say something, Four?" He jumped and turned. Wild was giving him an odd look again. "He thinks we're crazy." "We kind of are." "Shut up. No, we aren't." "No," he said quickly. "Just that the skewer tastes good." "Why did you add that on? You haven't even taken a bite yet." Four blinked down at the skewer, then shoved it into his mouth, giving the champion a thumbs up. "Delicious," he said around the meat. Wild's face crinkled into a mixture of disturbed and concerned as Four tore a chunk off, eyes darting away nervously. "Goddesses, you're bad at this." There might have been amusement laced into the level tone if this hadn't been a situation they were trying to salvage. "Then why don't you do something?" burst forth, though the flare of frustration quickly gave way to nothing more than a pitiful ember as the voice added, "I'm just trying my best." "Because you keep rushing in before I can," was the reply. A snort and a grin that pulled Four's lips up. "Stupidly rushing in ahead is Blue's job, not yours." His smile dropped. "Don't tempt me to make this worse." The tone ruffled in response. "I'm just saying it like it is. Red wishes in just as much as I do. Don't go pinning it all on me." Blue isn't entirely wrong. They both rush in, just in different ways. You have a tendency to rush into things too, Green. Honestly, you should all be quite thankful for my self-control. Oh, like you're some perfect saint. I never said I was perfect. Also, Wild is still staring at us. We're forgetting to chew. Four quickly resumed eating, turning his head away a little as his face heated further. Wild watched him a moment longer, then headed over to Twilight. Churning irritability came. Better not be to tattle on us. If he was going to tattle, he probably would have gone to Time. One part of him felt relieved until, though if he tells Twilight, it'll end up in Time's ears anyway, was added. Even if he doesn't, the old man will sniff out something is wrong anyway, grumbled the reply. With his nose? Absolutely. Four barked out a laugh, and then froze as several pairs of eyes moved his way. He cleared his throat and shoved a mushroom in his mouth. Green, really? Not my fault, I'm funny. I mean, making fun of his nose isn't that funny. You were part of that laugh, Red. I could feel it. Well, I shouldn't have laughed. You know how annoying short jokes can get. Actually, thoughtful and analytic, a new thought arose. Time has smiled at some of their jokes. We've seen it. So I don't think it's entirely unfair. It's not like he can hear the joke anyway. See, even Vio thinks it's harmless. As long as we keep it to ourselves, he murmured. Yeah, so keep your mouth shut, Blue. Green was the one who made the joke, and Vio was the one who started talking out loud. He blinked. Are we talking out loud? Whoops. To shut himself up, he focused on eating, the motion mechanical amidst the voices in his head, pressing at the edges of his skull. Skies above, they wanted to split, get some breathing room for the swelling four that seemed to take up more space in his brain than there was room for. But was it even safe to split when the sword had a crack? It was clearly affecting them as it was. Splitting was probably a dangerous idea. Might be worth it to get your voices out of my brain. It's our brain too. Four shifted towards the fire, tossing the skewer stick in. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. I can't focus with all of your jabbering. Sparks of frustration. I'm not even saying that much. There's not anything to focus on at the moment either, a neutral addition pointed out. Can we all try to get along as long as we're stuck like this? I know the headache doesn't help, but you're suffocating me. It's not even possible. Can we get out of my space? Aren't physically hurts, can't touch each other. Always touching, shut up. Aren't we? Can't think, shut up. Not if I'm you, so can't, shut, won't, get out, shut up. He was on his feet, the words bursting out of his mouth with a fury. Shut up! The camp fell silent, and Four's face burned, heart pounding in his chest, his throat, his ears, as he realized the words had popped out of his mouth rather than staying in his head. Tell them they were loud. They weren't loud. Someone say something. A, fly was buzzing around my head really noisily, he said awkwardly. Really, Vio? That's the best you can come up with? I failed to hear any input from you, Green. Oh, I hate when that happens, Hyrule said, nodding in sympathy. At least one of them seemed to believe him. Wild and Twilight exchanged looks. He totally tattled, before Twilight got up to sit next to Time. Told you, it would wind up in Time's ears. Is that or his nose? And both are big enough. Cut it out. Ugh. His brain was going to explode. His fingers found the edge of his headband, tempted to pull it over his eyes. Take it off, strangle us, pull it over their eyes, and block out the world. Before he could make up his mind on what course of action to take, all the opinions bouncing around his brain, leaving his fingers stuck pinching the fabric with no other movements. Time came and sat beside him. The fly leaving you alone now? Four's hand dropped, fingers curling into each other as his hands clasped over his lap. Yeah. Good. Time's gaze swept over the camp. Looks like quite a few are heading to bed early. Think you'll do the same? Yo, Ness. Ford pressed his hands over his mouth, let out a high-pitched, muffled sound of frustration, and then lowered his hands. Slowly, he said, "Maybe." He sucked in a breath through his nose. "Definitely." The man's gaze turned to Ford, piercing him through. "Are you feeling okay?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, and then left it open for a full 3 seconds before snapping it shut. "I'm just tired. So, yes, I'll be going to bed early," he ground out. "I'll be fine by morning." "You sure you didn't hit your head too hard during that battle?" "I didn't hit my head at all," he snapped. His lips thinned. "Sorry, didn't mean to snap. I'll be okay, just need to sleep." That calm, hard-to-read stare of Time's made their skin prickle. "It's like he can see us." "All right, get some rest." Time got to his feet again and left him alone. He stared at the grass for a moment before getting up to find a place to lay out his bedroll. Going to bed early was definitely a good idea. "Something weird is going on with Four," Wilde said, taking a seat next to Twilight after he finished eating. "What, like he's talking to himself?" "He does that sometimes. Some people think better when they talk out loud. I wouldn't worry about it." Wilde shook his head. "No, not like that. Weird in a different way. He even mixed together a word once. Do you think he's got a concussion?" The two turned to look over at Ford just in time to watch him laugh to himself, grabbing the attention of several others. He looked like a startled deer for a moment before stuffing a mushroom in his mouth and turning away. Twilight's expression shifted into a wince of concern. "Well, he never told us he hit his head. Four's not the type to withhold that sort of information. It doesn't do anyone any good to keep that a secret, and he knows it. Maybe he's just worn out. We'll keep an eye on him for now." Wilde nodded, casting another glance at Four, who muttered something to himself. Twilight wasn't wrong about Four sometimes talking to himself, usually when he didn't seem to think anyone was around, but Wilde had figured that was just how the Smith worked stuff out. Warrior sometimes murmured under his breath when trying to figure things out, and Legend occasionally did the same when he was mad. But this was definitely different. Four looked like he was in pain. Sure, the smithy was headache-prone, but the distant look in his eyes and the way his lips twitched and moved silently as he tossed his skewer stick into the fire had him worried. The worry only heightened as the teen shot to his feet and shouted, "Shut up!" The sound of crackling flames filled the dead air before Four spoke again, an odd excuse about a fly. He exchanged a worried look with Twilight, who got up to go sit by Time, probably to share their concerns with the man and see what he thought that they should do. Wilde might have believed the fly excuse if it were Legend who said it, but Four wasn't the type to blow his top over a fly. At least, Wilde didn't think he was. He supposed everyone had their breaking point. Maybe the fatigue from the battle, a probable headache based on the way the Smith kept rubbing his head, and a super annoying fly were enough, in this moment, to make Four snap. "Time will check on him," Twilight said as he passed by Wilde to get his bedroll laid out. "Thinks maybe we'll keep him off the roster for taking watch tonight." Wilde nodded, gaze lingering on the Smith for a moment longer as Time approached the boy. "I hope he's okay." This is the end of Chapter 1. This is the author notes for Chapter 1. Never thought I'd wind up wanting to write a Four-centric fic, but here we are, and this is not my only Four-centric fic in the works. Who'd have thought? Alright everyone, hydrate, take pills/vitamins if you got 'em, eat food if you need to, do some stretches, go to bed if it's late, take care of yourself.